Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, you have my most recent edition of Recent Reads. And it was the week of spring break, but I didn't update each day as I completed books. So it's Sunday, and I am updating with every single book that I read this week. I've read a total of 8 books now. Technically, I haven't quite finished one of them, which I will talk about at the end, but later today, once I get all my obligation stuff done, like editing this video, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to puzzle, and I'm going to finish the book. But I'll talk more about that when I get to it. So I'm going to start off with the ARCs that I read that I do not have physical copies of. So as of today, I have one book left on my already set TBR, but I'm listening to that as audio, and I'm going to pick it up as soon as I finish that book that I just mentioned. As far as the books that I read physically, or in this case with my ebook, I decided to go ahead and just work my way through several of my ARCs. I've gotten my reviewing percentage up to 55, not too shabby, and I plan to read at least 2 more ARCs, hopefully, by the time the month ends, which will put me in a pretty good spot. So I'm going to start with Sincerely, Cicely. So Sincerely, Cicely is a middle grade novel that came out at the beginning of this year. And as I started reading this, I started to get really excited about what the author is talking about and presenting here, because it's an aspect of Latina culture that's not really talked about at all. So Cicely is Panamanian. Both of her parents were born in Panama and immigrated. She's American, but she's also Black. And it talks about the Black Panamanian experience, which is not something that gets talked about a lot. And the exploration of that was just absolutely fascinating. And it sets up a lot of things that go on there, because in addition to being Black, there's different levels. And her dad is lighter skinned than her mom. And her abuela, who she loved, lives not with them, but near them and comes over for dinner and stuff. But her abuela says something about her hair and the braiding of her hair. And so Cicely's dealing with colorism in her own family. And she also has to give she's dealing with having to go to a new school separate from her friends. And she has to give this presentation about her culture. A lot of people are like, but you're Black. You know, people from Panama, we speak Spanish and we're not Black. And they were just really confused by it. And it presented a lot of really, really hard and difficult topics. And she also has to deal with like friendship issues. And so there was a lot going on, and it was handled fairly well throughout it. But there were some parts of it that I just was kind of like, some of this is not ringing quite true as to what a 6th grader would do /say /think, and that was in her writing. Cicely loves to write, and she wants to be part of the online newspaper that's going to get started, and she ends up writing an article. She ends up writing things in her journal throughout the book, but the stuff that she's writing does not sound 6th grade level. And this is coming from a former middle school English teacher. They don't write like that. They just don't. Are there some that are really good at it? Yes, but still, they don't write at that level. And that sort of took me out of it a little bit. And so for that reason, I did end up rating it, I think 3.5 stars. Not bad, just so close to being really good. Next we have This Is Not a Personal Statement. I love this cover. This is a YA contemporary novel, and I thought it was an interesting premise. So Perla, the main character, she skipped a couple grades in elementary school, so she's 16, almost 17 when she graduates from high school, and she has applied to a bunch of different colleges she wants to become a doctor like her mom, or at least she thinks she wants to become a doctor. And there's no safe schools, there's no fallback schools. And unfortunately, she doesn't get into any of those schools. So what does she do? She's living under a lot of pressure from her parents, from her family. And so she forges an acceptance letter from her dream school. And then she goes to that school and throughout a series of escapades pretends to be a student there because she's going to apply again and get in, and then everything will be okay. Clearly, things do not work out well. I was willing to go along with it. Is it stretching the suspension of disbelief really far? Yes, but I think that's possible in novels like this. Then it comes to when she inevitably gets found out. The stakes that are placed upon her, the consequences for all of this stuff, that pushed it over the limit of believability or how far my suspension of disbelief would stretch. It just seemed way too serious. And I just was thinking, this is just really harsh. At the same time, though, she's talking to her parents and she's dealing with all of the fallout from that. The author does characterization really well because I was still invested and rooting for Perla and was really angry at her mom for how she treated her and was still treating her. At the end, it's like, you're still so concerned about yourself instead of your daughter who did all of this ridiculous stuff because she, didn't want to disappoint you. So that also was a 3.5 stars. Good, but not really something that in a while I'm going to remember. And the last of the 3 arcs that I don't have physically is The Roof Over Our Heads. And I looked forward to this one because I read Nicole Kronzer's debut novel, Unscripted, last year as part of SEASL, and wow, did that pack a punch. There was a lot of madcap humor as well, and fully fleshed out characters and relationships. And this one also had really well fleshed out characters, a lot of madcap, zany humor. Just the stakes were not at the same level as Unscripted. And I really enjoyed it. I really felt invested. I thought it was really fun to watch unfold, as obviously I'm not watching it as a movie. Okay, so the camera angle changed a little bit because I had to fix my battery. In this book, the main character, a male protagonist this time, Finn, his whole family is into acting and they live in this historic house that they use to put on productions, but it's historic, it's old, it's falling apart, and the theater company is going to give it away, or, well, not give it away, sell it. And so they're putting on this fully immersive Victorian experience, like 1890s. And all the actors are living at that house, and they're like all their phones and everything that didn't exist at that time is put away. And all sorts of things are unfolding because of this. And I really enjoyed my read. It definitely had much lower stakes than Unscripted, but Nicole Kronzer really knows how to write. Now we're going to shift to the physical reads. And the first of those I have is Holopox, The Hunt for Morrigan Crow. I was a little bit let down by Wondersmith, the second in the series, but this one brought everything back. And in this, Morrigan finally gets to study the wondrous art. She's finally figuring out what it means to be a wondersmith. Is she still looked down upon? Kind of, yes. But the other members of her class of Unit 919, they're really coming together in a way that they didn't in Wondersmith. And they're a real family, but she also gets wrapped up in how they are teaching her the wondrous arts, because obviously there are no wondersmiths except for Ezra Squall, who, Nevermore's not going to let back in just to teach Morgan. And she gets wrapped up in that. She's dealing with what that means. Jupiter's around a whole lot more, which is fantastic. But at the same time, there's the Holopox, which is this disease that's affecting the Wunimals. Now, Wunimals are these giant animals who are basically anthropomorphized. They have intelligence. They work alongside of all of the humans in Nevermore. But the Holopox is making them turn into vicious creatures, attack, and then leaves them completely lifeless. They're not dead, but they're in this comatose state where they're hollowed out, hence the name. And then when they wake up, they're turning into animals, as in just regular, bears or squirrels or foxes or whatever. The way that Jessica Townsend describes the devastation both on the Wunimals and how that's affecting the ones that are infected, as well as all the rest of them fearing being infected, as well as the psychology used by others in the crowd against the Wunimals. It's just fantastically done, especially at a middle grade level, and I rated this 5 stars. Plus, there's a little bit of ambiguity at the end, and I'm really interested in Silverborn, which is coming up end of this year, I believe. So the next 2 that I read via audiobook, and I really enjoyed that. It was a little bit difficult at first to separate Michael Kramer and Kate Redding's voices from all of the Stormlight Archive and Mistborn books that I've listened to, but I listened to A Gathering of Shadows and A Conjuring of Light. So I will talk about A Gathering of Shadows first. Now, I read the first book end of last year, I believe, and I really enjoyed it. Now, it's been several months since I've read it, so it did take a little bit before I got into this to remember the different parts of the world. Now, some of the aspects that were in the first book, a lot, are not really as much in this one or the third in the series, and that's the traveling between the London. It's a lot more restricted, you know, obviously based on the events of the first book in the series. But the world expands in a way that I absolutely loved. You still have the interplays from the different Londons. In one of my Owl Crate boxes that I bought afterwards, I got this book box, and I knew it was from the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy, but I had no idea what this meant. Now I know, and I love this. So the stakes there, okay, it's called the Asentosh, but I have no idea how it's actually spelled because I listened to it. I didn't read it, but it's just this contest that comes around, and you think that that's going to be the deal with this book. The way that it gets twisted and the way that the platforms that Rye built, as you know, he's using it as a way to prove that he should be the ruler of Red London, even though he doesn't really have magic. And the connection between Rye and Kel, so well done. I'm a little iffy on the character of Alucard even after reading this one as well. I mean, he's fine. Did he even have to be in there? I don't know. But the way that those relationships were played between Alucard and Rye, and Alucard and Kel, and Alucard and Lila, boy, howdy do I love Lila. She really comes into her own in this book. Then we come to the third book in the series. And there are a lot of reviewers who have loved the first 2 and absolutely hated the third one. So I knew that going in, and I'm like, a little wary, you know, keeping that in mind as I listen. I don't know why. I thought the way that Schwab weaves together everything to make this story and to lay the groundwork for the subsequent series that is starting this year, so I don't have to wait like other people, just brilliant. I loved all of it. And several times there were parts of this story that I should have seen coming and sort of already saw coming, but she still caught me off guard when they came, and I gasped out loud when I was reading it. And when an author can do that, I'm gonna love the book. So I don't remember what I ended up rating these. Probably, I think 4.5 stars for both of them. Next, we have the last arc completed book that I read physically, and that is The Grace of Wild Things by Heather Fawcett. Unintentionally, I managed to read 2 Anne of Green Gables retellings in the same month. So there's Anne of Greenville that I read earlier in the month, and then there is this one. So Anne of Greenville and The Grace of Wild Things, very different, but you can definitely tell their origins. Anne of Greenville is contemporary, it's YA, a lot of things are changed, but then a lot of things stay the same. A lot of the names are directly pulled out from Anne of Green Gables. There's definitely not as many names directly pulled out in this book, but this book is set, instead of in the United States in modern day, it's set on Prince Edward Island around the same time that the original Anne of Green Gables occurred only make it magic. The Marilla character is the Wicked Witch who Grace goes to because she knows that she's also a witch. And Grace is the Anne character. And the whimsy that Heather Fawcett captured in Anne, and her wild dreaming and imagination and the way that she just prattles on was so much better captured in this book than in Anne of Greenville. I really enjoyed the story and the twist on it. There was just a piece of it missing as far as the characterization of the Marilla character, the witch, and the way that that played out was really kind of dissatisfying. Although at the end, another character sort of comes back because of something that has happened in this one. So I really enjoyed it, and it set up good things as far as reading Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, written by the same author. That one is adult, and it's one that I bought in a haul video that's not going to come up until a couple weeks after this video goes up. But I enjoyed my read of this. I thought it was adorable. The last book that I have to talk about this week is the one that I haven't quite finished yet. I have about an hour left of it. It's the book that I have 2 audiobooks left. And so my mom and I went down to just outside of Charleston for a half marathon yesterday. And I saved, because I finished A Conjuring of Light on Thursday. I didn't start another one, and I held up these 2 for her. I'm like, okay, which one do you want to listen to on the drive down and the drive back? And she chose this one. So I started this a little bit, but I'm going to be finishing it this week. This is the one that we chose to listen on the way down. Now, I probably would be finished if I listened to it at the same rate that I normally do, but my mom doesn't listen to things as fast as I do, and I wanted her to be able to enjoy the story as well. So I slowed it down just a little bit. But in this is part of the, I don't know what the series is called, but the 2 books, the other 2 books in the series are Love and Gelato. I've read that one. And then Love and Luck. I have that one yet to read. And in this one, the main character, Olive, is going to Greece to meet up with her father, who left the family when she was 8. And she's now 17. And she's got a lot of conflicted feelings about that. And the way that she deals with it is not great. She keeps making a lot of mistakes, but they're understandable. And her father is this Atlantis hunter. And she used to love that until he left. And so that's part of the baggage going into it. And there are some clues on things that both my mom and I are pretty sure are of what happened. Obviously, I haven't technically finished it yet, but there's enough of character exploration in this book to make me really enjoy it. And it's not just a love story, which I'm glad, because those sorts of things aren't really what I'm interested in. But when we got home yesterday, with still like an hour or so to go, she's like, "You're going to tell me how it ends, right?" And of course I will. So this was definitely an enjoyable read. I don't know how high I'll rate it when I finish. That'll depend on how Jenna Evans Welch wraps this up. But it'll probably be at the lowest a 3.5 star, probably a 4 star, because I have enjoyed my read. So there you have it. There are the 8 books that I read this week, the week of spring break. I had this idea that I would read more, but I got more done. I filmed a couple videos. One of them was really long. I rearranged my library. You'll see that in that haul video. I have a whole side of my closet over there that is now TBR books. You'll see that in my April TBR because it's behind me. And I ended up doing a lot of other things, getting a lot of other things ready, and didn't do as much reading as I had hoped, but still, it's 8 books. That's not too shabby. So thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.